whether you're married yet or you're on the hunt to get married, you're still not married, but you're on the hunt to get married, this will help you either way. And that is, when you're dealing with the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whilst you hope for the best, you do expect the worst. You hope for the best, but you expect the worst. What do I mean by this? Why do we want to get married in the first place, outside of the obvious? Be able to fulfill our intimate needs and desires and whatnot? Well, because we want to be loved and to love. We want to love and be loved by this woman that you will call your wife. The problem arises when you place too much hope or expectation on the love of your woman towards you. And this is how men invariably become heartbroken by women when she inevitably lets you down, be it in a small way or in a big way. She lets you down in some type of way. And the truth of the matter is, the only being who is able to love us and for us to love that being in a manner that will not let you down ever is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the only one whose love will never disappoint you and will never let you down. He is Al-Wadud. It's one of his names. He is the loving. And it's important that I share this with you, because if you can teach yourself to love Allah more than you love any of his creation, irrespective of how much the creation disappoints you, you'll be okay. And the creation will disappoint you. Now, I'm speaking in the context of marriage and dealing with your wife or wives here, but this could be anyone, your children. Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّمَا أَزْوَاجُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ عَدُوًّا لَكُمْ فَاحْذَرُوهُم. Verily, in your wives and in your children, there is a plain enemy to you. Be wary of them. Sometimes they are an enemy to you in an overt fashion. They overtly become your enemy. And sometimes they are your enemy in a covert fashion. How? Covertly. For example, you're playing with your kid or you're spending time with your wife and you end up missing salah in the masjid in Jama'ah. Or worse than that, missing salah completely at all. In which case, they have become an enemy to you. And sometimes they become an enemy to you overtly. They turn on you, just as Nuh alayhi salam's son died a disbeliever. He's an enemy, even though when Nuh pleaded with Allah, he is innahu min ahli. Allah said to him, no, he's not from your family. He is not from your family. And Allah chastised him for this statement. Point being is as follows. If you can train yourself to love Allah more than you love the creation, and to only have this expectation that this love will never be disappointed by Allah, but it can always be disappointed by the creation, number one, you will be less emotionally affected and thrown off when you are inevitably let down by the creation. And the other beautiful paradox is, you will love with a touch of distance. So you will not love to the point like you see on these Bollywood movies, you know, she's my life, I will die for her and all this crap. Yeah. You will love with a touch of distance. You will hold yourself just a little bit. You will not give yourself completely to the point of losing yourself. You will still love her, no problem. And she will still love you, but you will hold yourself. And you know what the beautiful part of holding yourself, you know what it does? It gives man and woman enough space to love each other even more. That's the irony of it all, is that when you hold yourself just a little bit, especially when you're dealing with a woman, she wants you even more. Your job is to constantly keep her at bay, just a little bit. How do you keep her at bay? By ensuring that your bond to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is stronger than your bond to your woman. And you will be surprised at the amount of men whose bond is stronger with their woman than to Allah, even though they pray 5 times a day, they're practicing brothers, they don't engage in haram, and yet their bond to their woman is stronger than their bond to Allah, which is why they suffer such devastating heartbreaks, sometimes to the point of no return, when they do go through a traumatic experience with their wife. Let's say she divorces him. She suddenly ups and leaves. She goes back to her jahiliyyah. Maybe she's a revert, I don't know. And he is destroyed. And he ends up like a brother I know. I won't say who he is, but a brother that I know, who decided after over 2 decades of marriage and his wife divorcing him and taking the home from him and taking half of his assets, a brother I know personally, he has decided for himself that women are the enemy and that he will never marry again. This is a practicing brother. Okay, this is a practicing Muslim brother. Women are the enemy. He will never marry again and he can never trust again. This is the incorrect response. This is not the correct response. The correct response is, the creation of Allah is prone to disappointing us. Sometimes they disappoint us in a manner that is on the point of treachery, or indeed is treachery. It is what it is. But if your bond to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is stronger than any other bond you have anywhere else, you'll be okay. So then the final part of this equation is, how do I ensure, Mahdi, that my bond to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is stronger than my bond to anyone or anything else. Good question. You must constantly become aware of the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can see you, can hear you, and knows exactly what you're thinking at any and all times. And you refresh this thought and this memory in your mind consistently. I mentioned on a call the other week to get into the habit and practice of every single hour on the hour. And this is a practice that I am in the habit of right now, is to remind myself internally in my mind. I can do it whilst I'm training sometimes. Sometimes I am training and I remember it. Allah can see me. Allah can hear me. And then I call out to Allah. I don't even have to use my tongue, just from your heart. Call out to Allah. Either you're asking Him to remove something, a particular harm from you, or you're asking Him to give you something, or you want to thank Him for something. Get in the habit and practice of doing this every single hour. Number one, your bond to Allah will strengthen, just as your bond to your woman would strengthen if you're constantly in communication with each other all the time. It's just the way it goes, right? Your bond to Allah will strengthen. And on top of that, you will become more shy to sin, to the point where you become more shy to even think of sin. This is the beautiful part about this, because you start to become so aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your everyday life, you start to become shy to even dwell on an evil thought. And we can be prone to dwelling on evil thoughts. Although there is no sin in this, it is not something that is like a healthy practice, because thoughts eventually become things. You think about something long enough, you're going to be tempted to want to act upon it sooner or later. In this way, if you do go through a tough or difficult experience with a woman, you'll be relatively unfazed. You'll be okay. You'll be absolutely fine. And if you've never been married before and you're on the path to trying to get married, this will also bring you peace and contentment in your heart. That whilst you are here learning how to better deal with women, in each interaction that perhaps doesn't go your way and it doesn't pan out the way you wanted it to, you'll be okay, because you understand that firstly and foremostly, everything is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, the creation is prone to letting us down. And number three, my love for Allah is the only type of love that will satisfy me in the first place. No other love will complete you and satisfy you like the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the beautiful side effect of all of this is that when you establish this strong connection with Allah, it makes you even better at dealing with His creation, including women. Because as you guys know, these bints want what they can't have. And when they sense this touch of distance and there's something ever so slightly distant in you, and the reason why is just because you love Allah more than you love them. And you accept that they're prone to mistakes and letting you down, so you don't place too much importance on them. They want you even more. Win, 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 win all around.